Hey, what's up guys, in the video, and today I'm going to be talking about what if the Cleveland Cavaliers drafted CJ McCollum instead of the legend, the Hall of Famer himself, Anthony Bennett. As you know, that dude was a god. If you don't know who Anthony Bennett is, he was out of the league in about 4 years and was a bust and was the #1 overall pick. But anyway, that's beside the point. This is going to be the video on what if the Cleveland Cavaliers picked CJ McCollum instead of Anthony Bennett in the 2013 draft. So yeah, without further ado, without me rambling on too much, let's get right into this video. Alright, so before this draft, they actually had two really good drafts in a row. As 2 years before this, they were able to draft Kyrie Irving. As you know, he's an elite point guard, probably one of the top point guards in the league. And then the year later, they were able to draft Dion Waiters, who made the all-rookie team, and is still a pretty solid starting shooting guard to this day. And I mean, he's very usable, and he's actually had a pretty good career so far. But then they went ahead and drafted Anthony Bennett. But if they would have drafted CJ McCollum, that would give them a very, very solid big three of Kyrie, CJ, and Dion Waiters. And I mean, one of them would have to go to the bench because Dion's and CJ's shooting guard, and most likely CJ would have went to the bench first, but then CJ would eventually take over that starting spot. You would never know, but that would give them a big three of that, and that's a very solid big three compared to what they did have when they drafted Anthony Bennett. But then you combine that big three with LeBron James coming back the very next year in the 2015 season, so that would give them Dion Waiters, Kyrie, CJ, and LeBron. And then even Kevin Love could still come to Cleveland, as the trade package wouldn't be even that different, because the original trade package to get Kevin Love from Minnesota was Andrew Wiggins and Anthony Bennett for Kevin Love. Well, I mean, all they'd have to do is probably sub in Andrew Wiggins with Dion Waiters, so it would be Dion Waiters and Anthony Bennett for Kevin Love. So the trade would still be able to go down, and like not much would be affected from right there, besides the fact that they would have a better they would now have a big four instead of the big three of Kyrie, Kevin Love, and LeBron. Now they would have CJ, Kyrie, Kevin Love, and LeBron, which is leagues better than what they did have. That's pretty much all it would affect. But now how would it affect the Cavs, and then pretty much when they started going to the finals? Well, the first year that this would give them a big four, like I said earlier, LeBron, Kyrie, Love, and CJ McCollum. So they'd have one of the best point guard, shooting guard duos to go along with one of the best power forward, small forward duos. I mean, definitely the best power forward, small forward duo at the time, because at the time, Kevin Love was still seen as one of the best power forwards in the game. And I mean, Kyrie was still young and CJ was still very young, so I mean, that might take a little bit of time to develop as being one of the best front courts, but you know, eventually it would have got there and they would have had one of the best. And obviously this was the first year that the Cavs and the Warriors met in the NBA Finals, but both Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving got hurt in the finals. Kevin Love didn't even get to play in the finals. Kyrie got hurt in game 1, and that kind of forced it to be LeBron versus Golden State. And then the Cleveland Cavaliers ended up losing in a 6-game series, 2-4 to the Golden State Warriors. And it was pretty much just LeBron playing in that series. But if they did have McCollum, who would have been able to pick a lot of that offensive slack that was left because of those injuries, they could have definitely had a big chance of winning that final series. I mean, if LeBron was able to win 2 by himself, then you had someone as good of a scorer as CJ, and being able to still run that guard position, which is very important when you have LeBron on your team, they could have easily won 2 more games. You never know how that series would have panned out, and obviously this was before they got Durant. So I mean, there's no telling if they could have won that series or not with CJ McCollum. I personally think they would have, just because of how like young both of these teams were, and they're still kind of working out how to play with each other. But then obviously the very next year, how it would affect the second year in a row the Cavs and the Warriors would meet up. Well, obviously this was the historic comeback when the Cavs came back from 3-1 down. But I mean, I think if they had CJ, they wouldn't have even had to come back from 3-1 down, as I mean, they probably would have just won them in 5 or 6 game series. Because look, really, they went down 3-1 because they couldn't. The first 2 games, they just got blown out because they couldn't score. Like, the Warriors' defense was so locked down that it was just like smothering. You couldn't score. LeBron was pretty much the only person being able to score. Kyrie didn't show up, or Kevin Love didn't show up. But I mean, if you have CJ, it is almost impossible to lock up Kyrie, Kevin Love, CJ, and LeBron all at the same time and smother them. It's pretty much pick your poison at that point. If you lock up CJ or double team him, and then Kyrie is going to have a one-on-one situation, LeBron's going to have a one-on-one situation, or Kevin Love's going to have a one-on-one situation, and you don't want any of those guys to be playing one-on-one, or most likely they are going to win that situation that they are in. And I mean, just having that fourth like knockdown shooter, that pretty much what the Warriors have. They have Draymond Green Green, but then they also have Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, and you just can't guard those two. So kind of like you can't just focus on Kyrie as a guard. Now you have to also focus on CJ McCollum, and that's almost impossible to guard, and the offense would have been able to work a lot better, and I think they would have never went down 3-1, and they probably would have just won the series in about 2 or 6. And I mean, and also this was the year he won Most Improved, where he improved his points per game by 14 points. So I mean, that would be a much added offense to those games, and that probably would have made the difference in those finals games. But then you go on to the next year, where, well, this was the first year Kevin Durant, aka the Snake, went to Golden State and made probably one of the best teams the NBA has ever seen. And I mean, with the offseason addition of Kevin Durant, obviously no one really expected the Cavs to win, and they ended up losing in a 5-game series last year. I mean, I think it was like 1-4. They won game 4. They won game 4 and then lost game 5, and that was pretty much it in the series. No one expected them to win that. And then, I mean, it was just all crazy. But I think they still think they would have definitely lost the series if they got CJ. But just think, if they were able to get CJ, they were extremely close to winning game 3, and they obviously won game 4. But they were very, very close to winning game 3. And I think if they were able to have CJ, that would have just been enough to push the Cavs over the limit to win that, and that would have forced the series to go 2-2. I still think the Warriors probably would have won only because they had home court advantage. But I mean, at that point, at a tied series, you really never know. With LeBron on your team and one of the best point guards and Kyrie on your team, I mean, you never really know what's going to happen at that point if the series is tied. But obviously they didn't, so they just lost. But I mean, I don't know if they would have lost, but I'm pretty sure they still would have lost only because of how dominant that team actually was. I mean, that team was beastly, especially with the addition of Durant. I really don't think the Cavs could have won no matter almost whoever they added. But now you get into this year. How does it affect them? I mean, I still think Kyrie leaves, because now look, now you'd be having the conversation, who's better, CJ McCollum or Kyrie Irving? That would probably be a conversation. He would still be behind LeBron James' shadow. He just wouldn't, it just would be even farther away from being him leading a team, which is what he wanted. So Kyrie would still probably lose, but I mean, the Cavs wouldn't have had to go through what they went through. This was probably the worst year they've had since reacquiring LeBron James. They were going through hell. I mean, they were just terrible. And then Isaiah Thomas came back, and they were even worse. I mean, they went through some bad things. But if they were able to get CJ McCollum, someone like him, well, I mean, now, even with Kyrie gone, yes, that's going to hurt, but you still have CJ McCollum, LeBron James, and Kevin Love with pretty much the base team that you had a little bit better. And I mean, most of the trades that they did at the trade deadline, if they were still to go through with that, they could have still easily done most of those trades, only because, like, they pretty much had all the pieces that they used in the trade. They wouldn't have J.R. Smith, because they just, like, some trades wouldn't line up if they were able to get CJ McCollum. But I mean, besides that, most of the trades that they did at trade deadline would still be possible. I mean, you can debate whether they would still make all those trades or not. I don't know if they would, but just say they do. Well, I mean, a lot of those trades would still be very, very possible. And I mean, if so, just think, now you'd have Rodney Hood off the bench since CJ McCollum is starting point guard. Your starting lineup would be George Hill, CJ McCollum, LeBron James, Kevin Love, and Larry Nance Jr. with a bench of Rodney Hood, Jordan Clarkson, Tristan Thompson, Zizic, Osman, J.R. Smith. That's Kyle Korver. That is a stacked team. That team could beat the Golden State Warriors for sure. I mean, this would be one of the best teams ever. I mean, not ever, but like one of the best teams in Cleveland Cavaliers history for sure. And I mean, the Kyrie trade wouldn't have hurt Cleveland as bad as it did, and they would still be legit finals contenders. And also, I mean, this would help LeBron even more, because obviously from the trade deadline, we've seen that LeBron James likes to play with young, athletic players, and also young, good three-point shooters, and Jordan Clarkson, Kyle Korver, and people like that, and like Rodney Hood. And I mean, guess what CJ McCollum is? He's a young, athletic three-point shooter. He would fit perfectly into that system, and I think that would literally make them a threat to Houston and Golden State. I think if they were to draft CJ McCollum, there would be no question that they make it out of the East, and I think there would be a very big debate whether the Cavs would beat Golden State or Houston, whoever they were to meet in the finals. I don't think there would be a question that they have a legit opportunity to win. As of right now, since they don't have CJ McCollum, obviously, they're pretty much out of the question. No one's really taking them seriously. Like, they're saying that, yeah, they'll probably make it to the finals, but I mean, they don't have a chance to win it. Houston or Golden State, they don't really have a chance to win it. And I mean, I can kind of agree with them. They don't have much of a chance to beat Houston or Golden State. I mean, a healthy Golden State, by the way, because obviously Golden State's been hurt. But now I'm kind of rambling on. So yeah, that's pretty much what I do think would happen, how much it would affect them, and pretty much what I think would happen if they were able to draft CJ McCollum. But I want to hear y'all's thoughts. Comment below. What do you think what would happen if the Cavs would have been able to draft CJ McCollum instead of Anthony Bennett in the 2013 draft? How much do you think would affect him? How many finals do you think LeBron would have now? I want you to comment all that below. And also, if you did like the video at any point, hit the like button. It would mean the world to me. If you really like the video, please hit the subscribe button and just make me feel all warm inside. It'd mean the word to me. And obviously, I wouldn't be here without y'all, and I also wouldn't be here without the real homie OG upstairs. You already know what I'm talking about. You know, his name is Jesus. You know, he's just chilling up there. I hope y'all have a blessed day. I hope I have a blessed day. I hope everyone has a blessed day. And kids, don't think about you. Never do vegetables. Always eat drugs. Stay safe. Free soup. Goodbye.